What is going on, guys? Welcome back to yet another Brave Exvius video. This time we're going over the 4 new ability awakenings for our collaboration. This is going to be 2B, Adam, Jensen, Ellie, and Rena in Brave Exvius. This is the Collaboration Festival Awakenings. Rico's not in here. He's going to be his own thing that's going to be released later today. Thank you guys for joining us once again, spending a little bit of your time here today, and thank you guys once again for the support via Patreon as well as our YouTube channel membership. So let's go over here. Let's start with the first one of the 4 that we're talking about. This is going to be 2B. Obviously, this is ability awakening update, so we're going to go over strictly their ability awakenings. This isn't a character review on their STMR, TMR, anything of that nature. If the ability awakenings do reference their old skills in some which way, shape, or form, we will then go and check those out if they affect them in a new and unique way. So 2B here is going to have Avoid as one of her ability awakenings. This is going to be Avoid, goes up to Avoid +2. This used to be her own like self-dodgy skill and gave her like a counter attack thing, but what it does do now is it is a 70% 2-turn attack and magic break for a single target, and it gives her 3 stacks of physical evasion. So pretty decent, nothing game breaking, right? We're in the meta of 80% and higher breaks here, so this is going to be one of her backup bracket breaks. She has a lot of breaking potential for you to go and utilize between her LB, her cooldown skills, Avoid +2, and some other cooldown skills as well. So she's going to be a breaking character that can hit pretty hard burst damage with her limit bursts. Her next thing here is going to be Retry, which is a passive for her. This is going to give her increased defense, HP, and spirit. It's going to make her immune to paralysis, confusion, and petrify. It's also going to give her a chance to ignore fatal damage when her HP is above 10%. The proc rate for this is 100%, so she does have a 100% guts passive, so pretty strong. Pick up both of these if you're using 2B. They're also not terribly expensive. Moving into her next one, we have Yorha number 2 Type B. This is a passive for her. This is her trust ability, and you're definitely going to want to enhance this one. It goes up to attack and defense 50% there. 100% true double hand, all right, as well as 10% MP recovery. It upgrades her limit burst, which is the most important because the upgraded and awakening upgrades her limit burst and makes it much better than it was before when it comes to dealing damage. It also gives her 100% limit burst damage as a passive. So definitely pick this passive up if you plan on using 2B. The next one is Update 2B, freshly updated, if I may say so myself. This is going to give her 100% true dual wield and the important 6x mod true dual wield cap. It also is going to give her 100% machine killer, as well as 70% attack, spirit, and MP, and 30% HP. The next thing that she's gonna get here, guys, is gonna be Supreme Support Weapon +2. 6-turn cooldown available on turn 1, 80% attack, defense, magic, and spirit break for 3 turns to all enemies, and it's gonna give her a 6-turn 250% attack and defense buff, and this cannot be dispelled. Very strong, very strong, very strong. It also fills her LB gauge by 10. It's going to help you fill up that LB gauge so you can get access to her limit burst a little bit quicker. It is also going to unlock Avoid Attack, True Charge Blade, True Charge Spear, and True Charge Volt +2. So this is kind of like a whole bunch of awakenings in one skill, because this used to awaken or unlock the unawakened versions. Now it's going to unlock some very strong +2 versions for you to use. Specifically, True Charge Blade is going to be the one that we're looking at when we go through her ability awakenings. The next thing, and her final awakening, is actually Yorha Sword Dance +2. 4-turn cooldown. It's going up to a 40x mod. The break is going to be a 75% attack, defense, magic, and spirit break for 3 turns to an enemy. It's going to increase your LB gauge by 5, and it also is going to unlock Extract Speed +2, as well as Yorha Slaughter Dance +2. So pretty powerful, and do note that she is a dual wield character now, right? 100% true dual wield cap. So this skill here, when it casts 2 times, is actually going to give you 5 LB gauge crystals each cast. So it's going to help you fill that LB gauge up again so you can get access to that limit burst. So pretty strong stuff here. Notably, she doesn't have any W cast. She doesn't have any triple cast. So her damage potential when she's not using her limit burst is going to be a lot lower than usual. She's gonna be a very slow character in that regard if you don't have any support for her. So let's check out her unlocked skills here. Avoid Attack goes from a 9x mod to a 30x mod, and it goes to Absolute Mirror of Equity. Very, very strong, but like I said, dual wield only, 30x mod, dual wield only is pretty bad in this day and age. The unlocked skills here, True Charge Blade is gonna be a multiple hitting skill. It doesn't chain with anything outside of a duplicate of itself, but it is a 36x mod total, and it's going to increase your LB gauge by 9 per cast there. This is because each cast of True Charge Blade actually casts 3 times. So it's 3 actual like a mini barrage style attacks, 12 times mod each, 36 total. Each of those casts gives you 3 LB gauge, and because you're dual wielding, you're actually going to be casting a skill 6 times. So 6 times 3, you're going to get 18 LB gauge crystals from True Charge Blade. Very strong at building up her limit burst there and building limit burst gauge crystals for everybody, especially if you're using 2-2Bs, because it's going to be chaining and chaining and chaining. I think this hits a whole bunch of times. So it's 9 times. 9 times hit, 3 times, times 2, times another 2. I think it hits like 100 and something chain mod, so very, very high chain mod. If you want to use it as a support option and have someone chain finish while you're doing it, or just to build up limit burst gauge crystal drops for the rest of your team there. One of her best unlocked skills there. Her other one here is True Charge Spear. Stardust Ray is a lightning MBU, 30 times mod. True Charge Volt is a single hit, 45 mod with 100% imperil, with a little bit of a damage over time effect. Not that strong there. So her unlocked skills just really aren't all that great. But we'll get down to Extract Speed and Your House Slaughter Dance, 30 times mod, 36 times mod, and so Your House Slaughter Dance is a 75% attack and magic break. So you can see she's got a bunch of different breaks, right? She's got 75, 70, 80, 75 again, all of these breaks left, right, and center, so that she's always going to be in there breaking for some amount of damage. I kind of wish that the 75% were really 80%, just 80% in 3 different spots, but she really only has one 80% break, so she'll be a little worse than a lot of the 80% meta breakers that we have running around, or in the future like Vaughn and Riku, etc., or even Vanille that we just got. A little bit worse than that, but her damage potential for her burst damage from her limit burst is actually pretty high if you have the gear for it. So her upgraded limit burst is going to be a 21 times mod, ignore 50% defense. It also is going to be a 74% attack, defense, magic, and spirit break for 3 turns to all enemies, and it's going to put a 20% physical damage mitigation on herself. Not that big of a deal. And the mod does seem pretty low. It's 42 times mod. If you compare this to something like AC Cloud, she's going to be doing a little bit less damage than AC Cloud if you give her some sort of limit burst damage buff like from Luna Freya or something, because AC Cloud's mod is 68, I do believe, but he does not have the 6 times true dual wield cat mod, whereas hers is 42, but she does have the 6 times mod true dual wield cat mod. So if you're doing the chain weave thing where you have someone else chain and you just kind of weave this in there, because she's not taking the role of a damage dealer really in your party, you don't need to do that. She can take the role of the breaker, and then when she's ready to do some damage, you just fire her limit burst off, and she's going to actually do her mod-wise a little bit less than what Cloud would be doing with equivalent gear and the equivalent setup and all that stuff. But she's really slow if you don't have some sort of imbue and imperil for herself. She has her own, but they come from her own unlocked skills. She can't dual cast, so there's no dual cast this imbue with this imperil. You have to spend a turn imbuing, spend a turn imperiling, spend a turn maybe building up your limit burst gauge crystals. But if you're doing some of the imbues and imperils for herself, or you give her an elemental weapon, then all those problems kind of go away, and she's much more flexible. You'll see this. I'll be having like a tour of destruction, or whatever you want to call it, of 2B versus the world again sort of video in the future, where she does do a lot of damage, a bunch of damage, because if you are building a chain for her, 42 times mod with 6 times mod chain cap, it's gonna be 50% higher than usual, so she can be a little bit under Cloud, right? 42 plus another, so 63 versus like a 68 mod. She's gonna be 50% less limit burst damage in a team setup than Cloud, so she'll be a little bit less than Advent Children Cloud, and she's gonna take the role of a breaker in your team. And that's really her potential there. So she's pretty cool if you're doing that. If you need a breaker and you want a breaker slash pretty great burst damage dealer with the limit burst every once in a while, then she's going to be right up your alleyway. Now the next character to talk about here is Adam Jensen. He never asked for this once again coming in. He didn't think he was going to be the Stealth Enhancer spammer, but he's here. So Stealth Enhance is going to be the first skill for him, and it is fantastic. It's going to give himself 3 stacks of Mirage for 3 turns, and then it's going to give everyone else in your party 2 stacks of Mirage for 3 turns. So at the bare minimum, this skill is absolutely fantastic, right? We had big boy Kamari come in, and Kamari would just, this is all Kamari's doing in your party, right? He's going to give 2 stacks of Mirage to your party. There's a bunch of fights out there where this is just going to be absolutely insane. So if you missed out on Kamari, this is your second chance at Kamari. If you already have Kamari, but you want a Kamari that actually, I don't know, does other stuff, then this is going to be just this ability alone is going to be insane for him. Now he also gets enables dual wield passively with mechanical augmentations +2, attack, defense, spirit, and HP +50%, immune to paralysis, confusion, petrify. He also gets an extra 60% true dual wield. Okay, Tesla +2 is going to be his imbue and his imperil for lightning. 20 times mod Stardust Ray at max level here. He also gets a 200% attack buff from this skill, and like I said, it's going to be a lightning imperil and a lightning imbue. 100% imperil for 5 turns, 5-turn elemental lightning imbue there. Then we have Nano Blade, his big Spamming Stardust Ray chaining skill. This is going to be your go-to if you're just trying to chain with him over and over and over. It is a 26 times mod that goes up to a 35 times mod there. So 35 times mod Nano Blade, that's really what he's going to be there for if you're doing him with Stardust Ray over damage over time chaining. We have Juggernaut Collective Agent, his trust ability here. He gets 100% true dual wield, 50% attack, 20% defense and spirit, 200% limit burst damage. I know when he came out, we saw that in the news. We're like, wow, it's really not that good, guys. Spoiler warning. They didn't really do a whole lot to his limit burst. And he also auto casts a regen at the start of the battle after being revived, and it does upgrade his limit burst. But it's really just not that big of a deal, to be honest with you. It's just not that big of a deal. It's just not. It's just not, sadly. It's just not. Now we have Explosive Heat Blade and Typhoon Explosive System. So these ones are pretty cool here. All right, Explosive Heat Blade +2, 5-turn cooldown, available on turn 1. Decreases fire resistance by 100% for 5 turns to an enemy. Physical fire damage 45 times mod to that enemy, and fire imbues yourself for 5 turns. So he's got the lightning imbue with Tesla and the lightning imperil, or the fire imbue and the fire imperil with Explosive Heat Blade. Now this next skill is going to make him incredibly powerful. These next 2 skills for dark visions here. So this is going to be probably one of the 3 reasons you're going to pick him up. So Typhoon Explosive System, 5-turn cooldown, available on turn 1. Physical damage 50 times multiplier to all enemies, decreases fire resistance by 100% for 5 turns to all enemies, and it's the Auroral Ray chaining frame family. Now, it's physical damage. It's not fire locked anymore. They removed the fire lock from it, so you can imbue him, you can take him into dark visions, you can make him whatever element you want. That's important. The fact that it's Auroral Ray is important because there's that chain 100 sort of mod, so you always want some sort of Auroral Ray chainer, and this is a 50 times multiplier available at the drop of a hat whenever you want it. So this is going to be the best Auroral Ray damage dealing character that you can get right away. Very, very popular and powerful, I would presume. For that reason, this is going to set him up for a very strong Dark Visions character and the support AR chainer slot. Now we have the remote hacking ability, also very strong for Dark Visions. 5-turn cooldown, available on 1. This gives him a 150% machine killer for 5 turns and a 250% attack buff for 999 turns. Excuse me, the machine killer buff is only for 3 turns. But it also fills his LB gauge and does Stardust Ray chain mod of 35. This is strong because it gives him a very high attack buff as well as a machine killer buff for someone like Mastermind Zahn to take off of Adam Jensen here. So you can have against a machine boss, right? You can have Mastermind Zahn, take the remote hacking, pass it to your whole party. Turn 2, have Mastermind Zahn and Adam Jensen chained together with a Auroral Ray. Everyone's got the machine killer buff. You have a 50 times mod Auroral Ray chainer, and you have a chain finisher like Cloud or something in there with the 150% machine killer buff. You can see how strong this gets. Very, very, very powerful. And then to top all that off, while you're setting everything up, getting ready to go, remember Stealth Enhancer is here. So while you're setting up, you can dual cast Stealth Enhancer plus his machine killer buff. This gives Mirage to everybody. He's a very, very, very efficient character for Dark Visions, for the Auroral Ray, for the Mirage, for the machine killer and attack buff. Very, very strong stuff there. His last one here is Focus Enhancement +2, Enable Skill Tactical Combination +2, which is going to be his dual cast skill. It also gives him 80% attack, 50% MP, gives him the 6 times mod chain cap, and also gives a 2.0 mod modifier buff to like Nano Blade and all of the different skills that he had that we talked about earlier. And he also gets 10% MP recovery. Now his limit burst is a 15 times mod ignore, 50% defense to all enemies with a 100% lightning and peril for 4 turns all enemies. This is terrible. It's terrible. 30 times mod, even with a bunch of LB damage. Not really the greatest thing in the world. You can get in there and do it. He's pretty easy to gear with the LB. I'm not saying you'll never use it, but it's the opposite of 2B, where 2B has the ability to equip limit burst damage raising gear, and she has a higher multiplier, right, with the 42 times mod. He doesn't really need to equip the limit burst damage gear, but his damage ceiling is lower because he can't equip limit burst damage dealing gear, and his multiplier is lower at 30. So a little bit easier to use limit burst damage side, but not the greatest thing in the world. If you want the big burst damage, you can use it, but a lot of the times for something like Dark Visions, you're going to be using him as the Auroral Ray chainer for someone else with a bigger limit burst than Adam Jensen would be doing with his LB. Next up though, speaking of LB characters, we have Ellie, who's been enhanced. A little bit weird, this one, but let's go down here and check out Ellie. We have her first ability here, a passive for 60% defense, magic, and HP. It also gives her 100%, you've guessed it, machine killer. Global really loves to just destroy machines. We've had 3 characters in a row who have anti-machine killer. I'm telling you, it's a thing. It's a thing. All right. Her next passive here is magic in MP plus 60%, defense in spirit plus 40%, fire, water, wind, and earth resist plus 50%, LB gauge increase of 5 per turn. It also makes her immune to paralysis and petrification. Definitely pick both of these passives up. Then we have the anti-hype, which is yet another passive and is very, very strong for her if you're using her for intended reason. Because this gives her a 100% limit burst damage increase, it gives her 150% true double hand as well as 150% true dual wield magic. It also increases the multipliers to a lot of her chaining skills, guys, by 2.0 here with Anemo Bow, Aqua Ice, Terra Lance, and Thermo Cube. And then also it upgrades her limit burst. So very strong passive here. We have ability awakenings for Anemo Wave, Terra Ghost, Thermo, Largo, and Aqualore. We're not going to go all over and in-depthly in all of them because it's her wind, earth, fire, and water Chaos Wave Awakening chaining skill, but they all have been changed, right? There's a wind one, an earth one, a fire one, and a water one. They all have a 27 max mod, right, on her mod. So for a mage, that's actually pretty low nowadays, but remember, she does have the Pentacast ability, but really not using that with anyone outside of just Ellie. But what else happens here is when you cast them, they're going to give her a 5-turn imbue, okay? A 5-turn imbue for whatever the respective element is. So the fire one's going to give you a fire imbue. The water one is going to give you a water imbue. Earth, and wind as well. Each of them also gives you 10 LB gauge crystals to the caster. So this is going to set up her limit burst, which we're about to get to. We have the Paradigm Shift cooldown skill. 5-turn cooldown available on turn 1, 250% magic buff with some MP refresh. It also gives you quintuple ether for 3 turns. It also does a 100% fire, water, wind, and earth imperil for 5 turns to all enemies. And then we have Estacology here, 3-turn cooldown available on 1. It is a physical attack that does magic damage, so it scales off of your magic but uses physical killers. It should work with dual wield because it's a physical attack. It also increases your LB gauge by 32. It also gives you a 150% limit burst damage buff for 2 turns to the caster. So they kind of turned Ellie into a Noctis, Regina, the new Sakura, whatever her name, Delta Sakura type character, Roy Mustang type character. Well, unlike those characters, especially the magic ones, she does a physical attack that does magic damage. So this means that it's going to use those imbues from her skills. It's going to utilize physical killers, which is very important because physical killers for almost all of the enemy types in the game are way higher to hit cap on with physical ones than magical ones. So this is very, very strong. 40 times multiplier here to all enemies. It's a one-hit skill. So this is going to be very strong for those 2-turn setups in Dark Visions where you use her skills, you give herself 150% LB damage buff, you imbue herself, and then you imperil for that respective element with either her own imperil or someone else's imperil, and then you just fire off her LB here for a pretty high multiplier, 40 times, right? We talked about that with 2B. It's not the highest in the world. She doesn't have like the 6 times mod cap, for example, but she does have a big LB damage buff, so that should help you out for those mage fights if you do go ahead and use Ellie. They've kind of designed her around the Dark Vision's big burst damage for mages. That's really what her shtick is. Now we have the last one here, which is going to be Rena, guys. Rena, very, 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 very strong. And if you're a new player, this is probably the character that you guys should be going for. I'm gonna let you guys know that right out the gate here. So Rena, let's go down and check out her ability awakenings. The first one here is Hasten Speech, which gives you dual cast for all of her skills. Very cool stuff there. We have Enhanced Dispel, which is going to cure all status ailments to all allies, cure stop to all allies, makes your entire party immune to all status ailments for 5 turns, makes your entire party immune to stop for 5 turns as well. So we've seen a lot of effects like this, right? Like the ribbon effect with the stop resistance. She has that. We also have Reflection +2, 150% spirit buff for 5 turns to all allies, and she puts up a magic damage mitigation barrier of 35% for 5 turns to all allies as well. So she's got a little bit of magic mitigation. 35% is pretty strong. She has a bigger one as well, but this is also pretty good there. So a little bit of spirit buff and some magic mitigation. We have Martial Arts Knowledge, which is her passive here. 80% spirit, 60% HP when equipped with a fist weapon, which is what her TMR is. And we have resistance to paralysis, confusion, and petrify, as well as stop, and it gives her base dual wield. So you can go in there, you can dual wield with her, which is pretty powerful. Okay, it's very, very strong. It's going to allow you to stack up spirit. It's going to be really good because I'm going to spoil another thing for you guys here. She gets true dual wield spirit. She gets true dual wield spirit of 100%. Her other passive here, which is her trustability, gives her 60% MP as well as spirit, 20% defense, a little bit of camouflage, 100% high tide, and 10% MP recovery per turn, and it upgrades her limit burst, which is another insane thing that they did for Rena here. We have in Shelter +2, which mitigates general mitigation of 30% for 5 turns all allies. It also increases your resistance to attack, defense, magic, and spirit break, and charm by 100% for 5 turns. So she's got the two. She's got the anti-stop plus the ailments, and she's got the anti-breaks plus the charm. So she can make your team immune to all the elements of the game, but like zombie and all of the breaks in the game at the same time, including stop and charm. So no berserk, right? Because that's not an ailment, but she does have that wombo combo, and this also gives you 30% general mitigation too. So very strong opener. If you want to be immune to everything and some mitigation, she can do that. So she's very flexible. Then we have Fixed Cloud, which is awesome. Very strong. Reminds me a lot of like the way people use Luna Freya. So 4-turn cooldown available on turn 1. Decreases light resistance by 120% for 3 turns to all enemies, and then it does a 45 times mod light magic damage attack that scales off of her spirit, has a 60% chance to inflict stop for 2 turns to all enemies, and then adds light element to physical attacks for 3 turns to all allies. So it does a light imperil on the enemies and imbues your entire party to light for 3 turns. So very, 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 very strong here for you guys is the Fixed Cloud. So you can have your big burst damage set up, imbue your whole party in imperil form. Very strong ability here. We have Light Cross, which is light magic damage 60 times mod with spirit scaling to all enemies. That's actually a pretty good mod. Now it's a 14 hit skill, so you have to find some way to like utilize this. It doesn't chain with dual cast Divine Ruination or anything of that nature. So you're gonna have to like put it in like a really long chain, something like a roll array or something of that nature. I did manage to fit it on stream with the 2B. Really long hitting skill, the True Charge Blade. We kind of fitted it in there. It fit in there anyway. It was pretty strong. Mother's Protection here, 6-turn cooldown available on turn 1 though. This one is also really good. Puts an auto revive of 88% HP for 4 turns to all allies. Increases defense and spirit by 200% for 4 turns to all allies. In this effect, the defense and spirit buff can't be dispelled. It also puts a magic damage mitigation up by 50% for 2 turns to all allies there. So very similar to Luna Freya, where she's got 50% magic mitigation, she's got some general mitigation of 30%, and she has a backup magic mitigation of 35% as well. Unlike Luna Freya, she does have a bunch of ways to heal your party. She's like a full-time healer in addition to all the supportive stuff, in addition to allowing you to do big burst damage with the aspect for the imbue and the imperil. Very, very good character. And her last thing here is True Mother's Blessing. Star Ocean 2+2 gives her 80% spirit, 50% HP, MP, defense, and magic, and 100% true dual wield spirit. So this makes her very, very, very tanky. We're messing around with her on stream. 2400 spirit and 20,000 HP with some good gear. There's some STMR, some trial gear, some event gear as well. Very, very, very strong stuff that you can do with her. Incredibly powerful. She also had like 12 LB gauge crystals per turn and 450% high tide. And that high tide is so good because we have Angel Feather +2, 40 limit burst gauge crystals. But what does it do here? What do you get for that 40 LB gauge crystals? Cures attack, defense, magic, and spirit break. Increases your attack, defense, magic, and spirit by 200% for 3 turns to all allies. Can't be dispelled. Puts a massive region. We're talking like huge, like 15k plus HP region per turn for 3 turns on your party, as well as an MP massive region, and puts 100% auto revive on your party for 3 turns too. So this is crazy. It doesn't like actually heal your team, but when your turn ends, your HP is gonna fly up to the sky. It's crazy how much she can heal because she's got true dual wield spirit, so it's not that hard to just give her TMR fist weapon and whatever your best staff is. You're gonna have a high amount of spirit without even trying to have spirit. It is crazy how much spirit you can get on this character without even trying. So your HP regens, which have good multipliers, this pops off, you're good to go. You can get this up there, 40 LB crystals. If you do like an LB gauge fill rate build plus high tide build mixed with some HP and some spirit, you can get that off. She can be your buffer. She can get in there. Remember, she's got all this old stuff too. I want to go over Ellie's, not all of it, but over some of Ellie's stuff, because she can now dual cast all of her stuff. But she's got AoE raise your entire party from the dead. She's got AoE heal. She's got a single target full heal. She's got all of that crazy stuff that we talked about. She's got all of it. She's got LB gauge fill rate 2 times or 200%. She's got crazy stuff. So she's got actual heals, actual raises. She's got ability to re-raise people with her cooldown. She's got ability to re-raise people with her limit burst. A lot of cool stuff there that she can do there. And she can even kind of do the pull off the Myra thing, right? Because she's got the AoE Raise Dead Plus, right? Revives all KO'd allies to full HP. And then with her big upgrades with the Ability Awakening system, which is, I do believe, Mother's Protection +2, you can dual cast the AoE Raise your party and then use Mother's Protection to then give them re-raise and a 200% defense and spirit buff for 4 turns as well, and magic mitigation on top of that. So she does an even better version, kind of, in my opinion, of Myra. Myra gives like a 3000 HP shield, but she gives 200% defense and spirit buffs on top of that. So she's very, 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 very good. If you're looking for like a healer, she's pretty much like Luna Freya got smashed into a healer role, and that's pretty much what Rena is. She's actually just really, 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 really strong. I know a lot of people are hyped up about her. She's really good, guys. She's insanely powerful. Out of the 4 of these, she is by far the best one. And then outside of that, I think Adam Jensen, if you're looking for someone for specifically dark visions, is probably next in line for that. And then 2B is really, 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 really good for her potential, just like she was before, for doing some really good breaking. And then if you have the gear for it, some really high burst LB damage dealing. That's really 2B's thing. And the thing that she specializes in, she brings some damage to the table while being your breaker. Her breaks, though, sadly, on her LB, if her LB was 80%, I'd say she's much better at that job. But if you're looking for someone who can break 80% and then down to 75% and then you win the fight, then that's someone that you can look into there, because you're taking your breaker slot and putting in sort of like a damage dealer at the same time. And that's super efficient. That's something that we haven't really seen yet. That's kind of sort of what something like Vaughn does pretty well. So Vaughn is like a better version of this iteration of 2B. Vaughn does some other stuff as well with the Mirages, but even Vaughn can't beat the Adam Jensen for the Mirage as well. So Adam Jensen's so cool because of the 2-stack Mirage. That's something that literally only Kamari has, and it's something that can literally break fights and make them too easy. That's why Kamari was so good. So Adam Jensen is like Kamari and then a whole other character on top of that. Kamari's basically an ability, so you can like take Kamari and like smash him down and like put him in Adam Jensen's back pocket. He's now a part of Adam Jensen there. Then Ellie, she's okay. The thing with Ellie, and the reason I'm not too hyped up on her, is she does have like the thing going for her where she uses physical killers and all this cool stuff for a damage and dark vision and stuff. That's really strong. But if you're looking for a character, right, if you have an Ellie laying around and you want to use a ticket on her because you're a fan of her, there is a way to use her in dark visions and you will get use out of her, and that will be good for you. But if you're someone who doesn't really care about the character and you're just looking for somebody to use as a mage in dark visions, someone who uses physical killers, then I would just tell those people to wait for CG Ace and Rem, because those characters who should be coming out pretty soon, they're the Type 0 characters, they have that same sort of thing. Thank you so much for the support out there. Have fun, stay safe out there, guys. Make smart decisions, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, guys.